Hey, I'm Anaya.
And I'm Chloe.
You may know us from Dr. Kumar's legendary Queer of Color critique class, where we explore queerness, race, and the body.
But today, we're taking a page out of Ariana Grande's book and switching the positions for you.
What are we here to talk about? Well, you know them, you love them, they're all around us. Lesbian princesses.
And cats.
Our discussion focuses on She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, a Netflix original children's cartoon created by Noelle Stevenson and based on the 1980s show She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Within 5 seasons, She-Ra, as it will henceforth be referred to as, explores the journey of Adora as she grows into her power as She-Ra and has to deal with shifting relationships between old friends and new.
Catra, one of Adora's best friends before she defects to Bright Moon, goes through her own journey as she breaks from the evil horde and learns the meaning of love and friendship with Adora and the rest of the Princess Alliance.
Today's analysis focuses on 2 episodes of the final season of She-Ra, namely Episode 5, Save the Cat, and Episode 13, Heart, Part 2.
Using these episodes, we argue that queer love, in this case Adora and Catra's love, is a necessary element in resisting white imperialist systems of patriarchy. Stevenson employs Adora and Catra's relationship as a life-saving device, underscoring that queer love is the greatest act of defiance against the heteropatriarchy's need for control.
Our analysis begins with one of the most toxic men of the century, and certainly the worst that the planet of Etheria has ever witnessed. Winner of Imperialist of the Year, Horde Prime.
The big bad in Season 5 is Horde Prime. While the creator of She-Ra, Noelle Stevenson, has said that he's not based on any one particular person, someone does come to mind when I picture him. Horde Prime, not unlike Mike Pence, is a figure representative of all the ills regarding white hegemonic patriarchy. Horde Prime and his clones are literal images of white hegemonic patriarchy. Their color palette is pale, mostly white and light gray with a poisonous lime green in their empty eyes. This is a taste of the world that Horde Prime, and white men more broadly, want to create. It is passionless, male, and above all, white.
Is it something funny?
You are not going to use the weapon, or you would have already done so. You would never risk the safety of your Catra.
You don't know me. You don't know what I'm capable of.
Oh, but I do. I am old, far older than you can imagine. My brothers lend me their life force, and when one vessel fails me, I simply elect another. Thus Prime has reigned eternal through the centuries.
This scene informs the audience about Horde Prime's view of leadership. It echoes the idea of manhood with which white enslavers inculcated black enslaved men. As Bell Hooks presents in the first chapter of We Real Cool, Black Men and Masculinity, transplanted African men, even those coming from communities where sex roles shaped the division of labor, where the status of men was different and most times higher than that of women, had to be taught to equate their higher status as men with the right to dominate women. They had to be taught patriarchal masculinity. They had to be taught that it was acceptable to use violence to establish patriarchal power. Hooks posits that black men were not brought to the United States with the toxic masculinity propagated by white men. This patriarchal masculinity necessitates domination over women and violence to legitimize power. Horde Prime is a paragon of patriarchal masculinity. His austere presentation of manhood seeks to establish his dominion across the universe. He only knows to crush his enemies under his heel, which is why he laughs at Adora's empty threat about using the heart of Etheria against him. Prime doesn't care who he hurts, as long as it serves to bring his vision into fruition. This is the fundamental difference between him and the Etherians. They love and he doesn't. he only controls.
Horde Prime's desire to control all that he sees, as so eloquently discussed by Anaya, poignantly gestures to Cheryl Clark's assertion that, quote, men at all levels of privilege, of all classes and colors, have the potential to act out legalistically, moralistically, and violently when they cannot colonize women, when they cannot circumscribe our sexual, productive, reproductive, creative prerogatives and energies. This, quote, potential to act out violently is seen in Horde Prime's interactions with Catra, particularly within the context of Episode 5, Save the Cat. Horde Prime attempts to mobilize Catra against Adora, thus furthering his greater agenda of colonizing Etheria. In this attempt, he makes Catra an object for his, quote, aesthetic project, literally remaking her in his image for his construction. The ability to make and unmake an individual through such a project was originally introduced by Anne and Lin Shang in Ornamentalism. We resituate this text within the context of Horde Prime's patriarchy, showing how Catra is forced into object status through Horde Prime's control of her.
What did you do to her?
I have made her anew. I saw her mind, so ensnared in rage and grief and pain, and I brought her to the light. Isn't that right, little sister?
Catra, you have to fight it! My place is with Horde Prime, Adora. I don't want to leave.
This scene shows the true evil of Horde Prime through his use of Catra's complicated past with Adora, and Adora's care for Catra as the objects to forward his mission, by, quote, making her anew, as he so scarily states. He echoes the sentiments Shang discusses about raced bodies. Horde Prime, in this moment, constructs Catra, quote, through fabrics, ornaments, and skins that never enjoyed the fantasy of organicity, one populated by non-subjects who endure as ornamental appendages. He removes Catra's individuality by connecting her to the hive mind, stopping her ability to think critically and effectively making her an appendage of his reach. We see this not only in her kneeling in front of him, showing her reverence for him, but also in her attire. She is clothed in the whiteness of the Horde. As such, she is not only figuratively an ornament to Horde Prime's rule, but also physically clothed in the aesthetic of his power. She becomes a, quote, ornamented body. In the eloquence of her new speech, her new garment, and her new walk even, Catra epitomizes the, quote, very elegant alchemy between the borrowing properties of thingness and personhood. She shifts from person in the physical to thing in the ideological. Everyone is just a thing to Horde Prime. However, Horde Prime made it so that Catra was just a thing to herself as well.
Catra, listen to me. I know you're still in there. I am not leaving without you. It's gonna be okay.
Shang discusses how, quote, Chinese femininity is not only more and less than human, but also man-made, not only assembled, but also reassembled. In a similar vein, Catra is reassembled through the technology of the evil chip in her neck, and thus man-made from scratch. This reassembling is in the image of the Horde, the image of white patriarchy, the image of evil. He decorates her in his literal image and reforms entirely the Catra that the audience once knew by cutting off her hair. Horde Prime's objective is to bring light to the universe and galaxy. However, the irony of this goal is that he drains light to achieve this. His draining of Catra and recreation of her in his image is the practical application of his goal for the universe. In his treatment of her, specifically in Save the Cat, the viewer begins to understand how the heteropatriarchy strips you of your person and turns you into an object in order to gain control.
Just as Horde Prime attempts to colonize Catra's body, the first ones, Etheria's OG colonizers, tried to do the same to Adora. In a character arc carried over from Season 4 of the show, we learn that She-Ra's sword is technology created by the first ones in an attempt to harness the power of Etheria for their own benefit. When Adora realizes that her people wanted her to surrender her personhood and become a weapon, she destroys the sword and loses She-Ra, albeit temporarily. She destroys the ornament that simultaneously constrained her and gave her personhood through thingness. Unlike the Etherians who rely on themselves and their body to find their identity, Adora's was formed through the object. Anne Chang evokes the same idea when she states, "While primitivism rehearses the rhetoric of ineluctable flesh, Orientalism, by contrast, relies on a decorative grammar, a phantasmic corporeal syntax that is artificial and layered." Though Adora has a pretty Aryan appearance, blonde hair, blue eyes, and becomes super Aryan as She-Ra, she has this in common with the Asiatic femininity that Chang describes. Adora's identity as She-Ra depends upon the artificial sword that she uses to initiate the adornment of herself as She-Ra.
The honor of Grayskull!
From the moment Adora was born, her body was one constructed through fabrics, ornaments, and skins that never enjoyed the fantasy of organicity, one populated by non-subjects who endure as ornamental appendages. At first, the Horde adorns her with identity by giving her a uniform. Then, Light Hope, and by extension the first ones, assign Adora meaning through She-Ra's sword. She has never been organic. Her adornments have created the shape of her personhood. Catra has a not dissimilar journey, both in the ways that Chloe discussed, but also her craving for the Force Captain badge, or ornament, to give her life purpose and her identity meaning. As Anne Chang says, she/it brings into view an alternative form of life, not at the site of the free and individualist modern subject, but, contrarily, at the encrusted edges and crevices of defiled, ornamented bodies. These two women illustrate a body ravaged by the decorative, but they are not lifeless objects. In fact, the two women with defiled, ornamented bodies are the ones who end up saving the universe.
So, how do they save the universe?
Through their big dyke energy, obvi. But actually, there are two scenes between Save the Cat and Heart Part 2 where the love that Catra and Adora have for each other saves them and the universe. Starting with Save the Cat, as Chloe described earlier, Catra has been brainwashed by Horde Prime, and Adora and the gang are there to save her. All hope is lost until Horde Prime pushes Adora too far. Hell hath no fury like a lesbian scorned, or whatever the saying is.
I am sorry for the needless waste, Adora. It did not have to be like this. Are you ready to cooperate?
For the honor of Grayskull!
Horde Prime saw that Adora was bringing the real, unbrainwashed Catra out from under his chip, so he electrocutes Catra through the chip, which makes her fall to the ground below the pedestal they are fighting on into a broken heap. One last way he can defile her body. But he doesn't get the last word. Adora is so incensed by Prime's casual disposal of Catra that her insecurities around being She-Ra and being used by the first one / Light Hope fall away. As Cheryl Clark notes in Lesbianism: An Act of Resistance, the lesbian has decolonized her body. That's exactly what Adora is doing in that scene. She has cast off the original colonizing purpose of She-Ra and recreated herself as a stronger, more sure of herself She-Ra. She doesn't get rid of the sword, which was the ornament of her thingification. Instead, she embraces it and forms her own sword. She accepts that she is both thing and person. It is her weakness and her strength.
Come on, Kendra. You're not done. Not yet. We're going home. Hey, Adora.
Clark predicts the power of Catradora's love when she says, "This passion will ultimately reverse the heterosexual imperialism of male culture." Horde Prime tried to break Catra's body and Adora's spirit, but their love heals the wounds inflicted by Prime. This episode's arc ends in a tender embrace between Catra and Adora. It's an affirmation of their love. Adora is saying that she will always bring Catra back home, and Catra is saying that she is going to try to love again.
You miscalculated.
Then we have the iconic scene from Heart Part 2.
Adora! Please! You have to wake up! You can't give up. You have never given up on anything in your life. Not even on me. So don't you dare start now! It's too late. I've failed. No! No! I've got you. I'm not letting go. Don't you get it? I love you. I always have. So please, just this once. Stay! Stay. You love me. You're such an idiot. I love you too.
I always get so emotional when I watch this scene. Adora was ready to sacrifice her life to save the people she loves, but Catra refused to let the woman she loves die alone. Adora starts to let Horde Prime in her head and exacerbate her doubts surrounding her own power. She even almost gives up, but Catra won't let that happen either. She begs Adora to stay with her, but it's her love confession that brings Adora out of her dark place both literally and figuratively. Clark says that for a woman to be a lesbian in a male supremacist, capitalist, misogynist, racist, homophobic, imperialist culture, such as that of North America, is an act of resistance. The Catradora kiss is the ultimate act of resistance against Horde Prime. Prime had almost gotten control of the heart of Etheria, which in the show is literally an amalgamation of Etheria's magic and figuratively, love. Love is the magic. And when Catra and Adora tap into that love, they're able to control that magic in a way that Horde Prime never could. As Cheryl Clark proclaims, we have spent so much time hating ourselves, time to love ourselves, and that, for all lesbians, as lovers, as comrades, as freedom fighters, is the final resistance. Adora and Catra have struggled throughout the show with loving themselves outside of what they can do for others for Adora, and yearning for external affection for Catra. Their love heals their physical wounds and emotional ones, and then heals Hordak from his possession by Horde Prime. Their love both for themselves and each other heals. Queer love heals. But Catradora's love is not the only queer love in the show. Their comrades also love them. We see a physical manifestation of their love in Adora's Season 5 She-Ra transformation. There's a heart like Bow, a headpiece like Catra, and wings on her boots like Glimmer. This shows that romantic queer love is not the end. We also need the platonic.
In our analysis thus far, we've aimed to underscore how white supremacy, imperialism, and the heteropatriarchy target queer people. They recognize queerness as deviant from the norm, as unorthodox, and as a framework to inspire others to deviate. Horde Prime targets Catradora because they are, to him, the source of the uprising. He believes that, in eliminating those who seemingly have the most power, he eliminates the source of the problem. What Prime fails to recognize is that the source of the revolution is not Catradora. In fact, Catradora's power only exists because of what they learned from the people surrounding them, their community, the Princess Alliance, the citizens of Bright Moon, and the planet of Etheria. Bow, Glimmer, Entrapta, Scorpia, and the rest of the gang set the standard for Catradora's actions and how they approach the world around them. Catradora is queer in the traditional definition that Shaban B. Somerville writes in Keywords for American Cultural Studies. Quote, an umbrella term that refers to a range of sexual identities that are not straight. In this traditional queerness, they deviate, and because this is the deviation what Prime expects, he targets them. What Prime fails to realize, in typical heteropatriarchal fashion, is that there is not one type of queer to fear, or one way to be queer. Horde Prime sees Etheria in a monolithic view, and thinks Catradora and Adora are the two diversions from this monolith. Rather, all of Etheria is queer, and that they deviate from the norm. Through their friends, Catradora learned to approach their revolutionary practices through a queer lens. From this group, in all their diversity, they learn techniques through which to fight the heteronormativity of Horde Prime, which attempts to, quote, exert its effects on both gay and straight individuals, often through unspoken practices and institutional structures. Not everyone in Etheria is queer in sexuality. However, they approach the world through a queer lens, knowing that their difference, their ability to love in spite of difference, and because of difference, is what makes them great.
Impossible.
You can't control us! You don't understand what makes us strong, and that's why you'll never win!
In this scene, we see this love come to life. Friend and foe throughout Etheria come together with the primary objective of protecting the world they know and love, and preserving the uniqueness of their planet. The community is united in the primary objective of preserving their world. They, in their revolutionary practice, challenge Horde Prime's identity categories, which, as noted in Shaban's text, are, quote, presented as stable, trans-historical, or authentic. They refuse to accept these norms just because they exist, and force Horde Prime to reconcile with what happens when the terms of normal are altered. As the scene progresses, Entrapta says, you can't control us. You don't understand what makes us strong, and that's why you'll never win. What she is talking about is love and queerness. Their queer love for each other, their bond over their non-normativity, their willingness to embrace difference and use it as a motivator is what ties them. Horde Prime hopes to fill the world with his light, to make light overcome society, to unify all the galaxy in one normative vision. Etheria will not allow that, because they never once believed in normativity and uniformity as an aspirational goal. Their love for one another, their pride in who they are, motivates them. In being queer in person and not just sexuality, their personhood exists outside the monolithic view Horde Prime attempts to assert over all of Etheria. What makes them strong is love and difference. Horde Prime will never understand this because love, queerness, and non-normativity is the antithesis of white supremacy, which is built on hate, evil, and a monolithic worldview.
Hey everyone, I'm Bo. Prime is probably trying to get his channel back right now, so I have to make this quick. Prime's controlled the universe for a long time. Right now, we're the only thing standing in the way of him controlling it forever. You might be feeling hopeless. You might be thinking we don't stand a chance. And maybe we don't. Prime's too strong. His army's too powerful. But that's not gonna stop us. We need to show Prime we're not afraid of him. Because we have each other. We have love. We can't give up. And if we go down together. We need you, all of you. It's time to take back our world. It's time to fight. For She-Ra, for our homes, and for each other.
Where Horde Prime operates only for himself, we see that the Etherians are always working for the good of the group. In the scene we just saw, Bo recognizes that their love, their unity, is what makes them different from the evil of Horde Prime's imperialist view. His speech echoes Intrepid's sentiment that Horde Prime does not understand what makes them strong, and further serves as a naming of this strength. In his call to action, Bo uses love and community as a galvanizing force to inspire all of Etheria to not go down without a fight. He recognizes the normative, that Horde Prime is in control and has been for a long time. But beyond that, he is prepared to go against the grain and do the hard work of changing the norm. His comfortability with that lies in all the people he has backing him up, sharing in his belief. As the scene progresses, we see Bo's gay dad, Spinnerella and Latassa, a lesbian couple, Rogelio, Kyle, and Lonnie, a throuple, and many more queer figures of love. These small queer groups make up a unified queer front, all mobilized by their love for their planet and their refusal to see it just die. At the height of the speech, Bo asserts we need to show Prime we're not afraid of him because we have each other and we have love. This quote epitomizes our point in this sector of the presentation. Cachedora alone could never have saved the planet. It is because of the queerness of their community, their willingness to stand in their truth and be non-normative, and their love for one another that white supremacy dies. Through their passionate love and active stance, the viewer is given a framework for how to approach the greatest evils of our world, with love in your heart and the community by your side.
Alright, pack it up, Chloe. Catra and Adora's love saved the universe. Maybe we should just start with a corner store or something?
You know what? I think our love is better than Cachadora's. Saving the universe is too much work anyway. But I do appreciate how She-Ra recommends, through Cachadora's arc and all of Etheria, a restructuring of society. Through these big old lesbian princesses, we begin to understand that we must reframe our world around love. So, 3 cheers for queerness, I guess. This concludes our presentation, Big Dyke Energy, Queer Love as Magic, and She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. At this juncture, we'd like to extend a special thank you / shout out to Dr. Kumar. We really do appreciate your dedication to making genuine connections with your students, your care for us within and outside the classroom, the hard work you put into each class session, and your willingness to have open conversations in office hours. You are one of, if not the, most accommodating, hardworking, and caring professors in this department. We see you and we appreciate you. You deserve all the flowers. Enjoy winter break, stay queer, and thank God it's the end of the year. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you thought about the video.